Okay, so I got the heater out, started taking it apart just for a couple of things. So that's how the display looks. I took that panel off. You can see a rust bleed here. So this is L1, L2, or rather just the L1 circuit. And if you trace it over, you can see that it was basically providing electricity to this first chamber, which is the one you're always going to get a lot of use out of. So you can see the corrosion, and all the green is kind of like the way that copper corrodes and rusts through. And again, this one is in really bad shape. It basically started getting the scale on the outside because they were leaking so bad from the tops here. It's pretty evident where the water was coming from down this one. So a diagnostic overlook of everything. This is your flow switch, and this is, again, an 11-year-old unit. This was working well because every time you turn the water on, you'd get a digital display readout, which is a good indication that at least this in a control panel is working. But where it failed, it stopped heating because this element basically kind of was corroded on the outside. Now at the top here, I have each element. So this was the first element. So this was in this tube right here. And you can tell that from the top of it, it was corroding from the outside in. And I'll show you the inside of the chambers. So overall, this element actually is not that bad. But when you compare it to the second one and the third one, I'll grab you the third one, you can tell how much cleaner that third one looks. So this is your second one right here. So this gives you an indication that was doing the second most amount of work, which is evident from the corrosion on this side. And then on this one, the third one, I mean, it looks practically untouched. And again, evident of how that coil is actually, the heating element is actually not that bad. So I'd probably actually hang on to this, and you can see the corrosion is a lot less. This is number one, and then this is number two. So you can see a significant difference in the corrosion. So why does that happen? Well, obviously, this is going to be number one turns on first, that one turns on second, that one turns on third, depending on your water usage. So like this one is probably powering most of your hot water if you're running your kitchen sink, or the dishwasher's going, washing machine's going, depending on your water demand. And then if you open up a second sink, since this can probably power 2 showers at the same time like we were able to do, or like you have a washer, dishwasher going, and then someone's taking a shower. So these two units are actually turning on. This one, you can see the lack of corrosion on the left-hand side, because I really don't think this heating element was being brought into play. Now, over the course of 11 years, I had replaced the first coil at least once, and the one in the middle at least twice, which doesn't make sense, but I guess if this is hardly used, heats up, cools down, heats up, cools down infrequently, but this one's being used a lot more. Again, I don't have a really good explanation of it. This flow switch on this model from 11 years ago, I've replaced this probably at least 4 times. So this is definitely an Achilles heel. I talked to EcoSmart on the phone for about 45 minutes, a tech, and I was asking them all sorts of questions before I bought a brand new unit. This flow switch has been changed, and I haven't seen it yet, but I'll show you a video of the new one. But this is definitely going to be an Achilles heel, I believe, on repairing it yourself on the new units. I don't think so. I was editing the video, and there was a couple statements in there I wanted to retract, because after having the new unit installed, I noticed some improvements which I just want to like cover. So if I backtrack or something in the video going forward, you'll know what I'm talking about. So anyway, 2 improvements. One, the improvement on the memory during a power outage. So whatever you have your EcoSmart heater set to, and you have a power outage, which I frequently have where I live, it will reset to whatever you had it set at. So if you had it set at 130 degrees, you have a power outage, it will come back and reset to 130 degrees. We max it out, I believe it's 140, and we've had several power outages since the new install, and it automatically resets to 140 degrees. So that's a fantastic improvement. The flow switch I have been informed on because I'm having some intermittent heating problems, which I will diagnose and go over in another video. But it's covered under our warranty, so no big deal because it's still under a year of having it. But it doesn't deter me. I absolutely love these endless hot water heaters, tankless hot water heaters. So if you run into a problem, don't let it, be a problem, because most of the times you can run 2 showers at the same time. And if you have children like I do, they like to take 10, 15, 20-minute showers, even though I tried to discourage that because of the energy use. But it's nice to know that you can take a shower that long, or take 2 showers at the same time, meaning we have a shower upstairs, we have one downstairs, and there's not going to be a big issue with that. That is the main reason why I bought these, especially since if everybody's here, our grandson and our daughters and sons and everybody's over at the house, and we have to go somewhere the following day, it can be like 9 showers back to back. And if you have a regular hot water heater, you're not going to be able to get this. The flow switch has been a Achilles heel on, as I mentioned, on the older units. On the new one, it kind of works like it's a magnetic flow switch. So little magnetic turbines in there. So basically the impeller, the turbine that sits in there, spins freely. It's not really like on a bearing. It's kind of like magnetic in there as it spins. So the old one was on a impeller shaft, and that shaft would get gunked up and slowly impeller down. This one is kind of like a magnetic spin. I don't know if you're familiar with fish tank filters, but that's how some fish tank filters work. You have an impeller basically mounted on like a magnetic spindle, and that's what basically spins. So the tech support has told me that has not been an issue on this newer model units that have been out for years. It's a very little concern at this point. There is a screen at the bottom of your heater that is on the water inlet that goes in. That does have to be, you have to separate the pipe and clean that probably like once a year, not too often, unless you have, change my hand position here, unless you have hard water, well water like I do. You definitely need a sediment pre-filter for these heaters. Otherwise, you can run into cleaning problems. And again, if you're installing one, make sure that you have it plumbed so you can put a valve higher and a valve lower and cut it off from the rest of the system. Your plumber will know. But if you're a DIYer like me, what you do is you have a top valve that you can pour white vinegar into a funnel. It will go into the coils, and then you have a clean out valve basically lower that you can drain it out. So if you have any more questions, you can probably send me a message and I'll tell you how to do that. But anyway, those are my updates and improvements after having this unit for about 7 months now. The new improved model. Super happy with it. Tech support is super helpful. I've gotten tech support usually within 1 to 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, I think, on the last call. But they are more than happy to talk with you, talk you through any issues, discussions, improvements, pre-purchase questions, anything that you need. Absolutely love the company. Anyway, back to the video. Be able to work. Anyway, so let's take a closer look at the tops. So that is your top tubes looking down. And let me get a flashlight going. And again, elements are pretty easy to change. So that is chamber number 3. So you can see there's a little oxidation in there, but not that much, a little corrosion. This is your second one. So again, not too bad. And then this is your first one. Again, not too bad. But what was happening, like I said, I had a leak probably in the elements up top, and then that's why you got that enormous amount of corrosion coming through, because they were just leaking through. Now, in the past, I've had these elements basically be so corroded that they basically are falling apart. And again, these, I mean, they're not bad. They're really not bad. I could probably give these a vinegar bath and then probably reuse them. I don't think I'm gonna keep this one just because the amount of corrosion that's on the top of that one. But like this third one, I mean, once I put a little bit of vinegar on this, white vinegar, soak it overnight, it'll probably be good to go, get some corrosion off this top part. But again, that is not bad at all. So this one's probably reusable, and that seal's probably not too bad. I'd probably put some silicone on there, probably get a new O-ring to put on there, peel that off, and then clean up the threads. But this is a probably reusable element. And again, 11 years, I religiously cleaned this with the white vinegar. And what I did is I had 2 access valves on either side, and I was able, higher up than the unit, so I was able to pour some white vinegar down and would go in through the cold water side, and then I would just keep pouring until it started pouring out the hot water side, which I had a clean out valve on the other side. So I'd fill these up, I'd let the water drain out, I'd fill these up with white vinegar, I'd let them sit for probably a couple hours, and then I'd come back and I'd turn on the whole unit, flush it with water through the whole house, and basically that helped clean out the lines a little bit, get rid of some of this corrosion on the inside of your copper lines, and then, you know, you were good to go. So easy to replace these elements once you get to the top, because let me slide this down a little bit, and we'll use this one since we're probably not going to use this one again. But they basically sit down in here, they slide down. They do tend to hug the side wall, so be careful. And again, you're just removing a wire on each one, doing one at a time. And then, like I said, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, as any other piece goes. And then they do slide out for easy maintenance. Again, I had some extensive travel this past year. I wasn't able to get in there to check on this and clean it, but 11 years is probably a really good run. I was more than happy with it. So I bought basically the same model, but obviously updated version. And another thing I wanted to point out here too is this wire. See that rust run I kind of alluded to in the first part of the beginning? This got a lot of moisture on it. It's got a lot of use. L2, again, some corrosion in there that you can kind of see. Make sure your coppers are nice and clean. And when you're putting them back in, if you're going to do the same thing I did, is basically just reinstall, you know, a duplicate unit, and then we go from there. New one should be arriving probably tomorrow, so I'll have a good chance to open that up, take a look at it, and give you a show and give you a side-by-side comparison and show you what's been updated. Anyway, stay tuned. But the cover is basically the same, identical. Now you can note the flow switch on the updated version is in here versus that one, which is a lot easier to maintain. This one looks like you would have to unbolt that, and then looking here at the bottom, it looks like there's just a screen in there. And I'm not quite sure how you would get into the inner workings, but I think that's going to be something we'll tackle a little bit later on. All right, so with the flashlight on, you can see that it has a filter screen in there on the inlet. So you can probably use like kind of like one of those little needle pointer things to grab that screen, pull that out, and then it looks like you can kind of see the spring in there for the hold the little spinning flow switch in there to pull that out. But we won't worry about that now. That will be a nightmare that we tackle down the road, because inevitably they do clog up and they end up failing at some point in the life of these. But again, I like how this is better configured than on the old version. but everything is identical. So you have your hot water sensor on the way out, hot water sensor on the way out. You got your basically temperature sensor inlet there, and on the updated version it is there. So everything is pretty much in the same spot. Wiring configuration, you can put your 3 grounds here, and then your 3 whites, and then here you have all your wiring inlets basically in the same position. One thing I am going to do is, this was super hard to get all 3 wires in there, so I'm actually going to drill a larger hole, probably like right here on this one, so I can put 2 wires through here and then a single wire through that hole. I'll drill that, and then I'll show you how that looks once I get that done. Okay, so I drilled a second hole, probably a little bit too close to where the case is going to go, but either way I wanted to make sure that I had an easier time pulling 2 sets of wires, 1 set of wire there. And I use this type of drill bit, which is about 3/4 of an inch, to get that in there. And then the clamp-on connector, 3/4 of an inch. So, okay, so a close-up so far. So that is a 3/4 inch fitting. That's underneath there, and it reduces down to the 1/2 inch. So this is that second hole, and you can see how tight it is. So that is definitely a something I highly recommend doing to make this a little bit easier. And then again, all the whites and grounds are going to go here, and then red to black, red to black, red to black, pretty easy to follow. So it's a matter of just bending wires into place, and we go from there. So okay, so not the best wiring. I never claimed to be an electrician. However, you can see where we have the whites, grounds, and then this is probably the most important part. You want to make sure that you have the right legs on the right legs. So the single one, black, have the red over here, and then we have the next cable that comes up and through. So that's going to be basically leg 2. And then you have leg 3, which is that 3rd wire back there. So again, make sure that the case can fit on there nice, and then that is basically it. And then we are going to be hooking up the hot water side. So you need a 3/4 inch reducer going down to a copper, into a copper elbow. And this is just because this is the hot water side. You could probably do PEX, but you probably want just copper, going to copper, and then convert over to the PEX a little bit later on. Also, water filter, very important going into the unit, because you want the water as clean as possible. And then basically, let me screw this in, and then we'll solder that in, and we'll be good to go. So an improvement on this, let me just get some water flowing here real quick. So that's your digital display. This now has a memory, so I was worried about putting a remote, because every time we lost power, as I had alluded to before, the panel would basically reset and would go down to like the 120 degrees. This one I had to add a 130. I killed the power, turn it back on, and it was at 130. So now this has a remote memory, which is a big improvement. Welcome to see. So again, not the best wiring job, quick and dirty, just to kind of get it up and running. I'll probably like bend some of this around so it's a little bit neater, but for this video, that is it. That is the everything installed the right way. That is that 3/4 downside, like I said, copper, and then I had it go down into that fitting, and so yeah, it just came on. So someone's running hot water upstairs, but yeah, absolutely nice, and hopefully that helped you out. And again, wiring, definitely drill yourself a second hole to make wiring a little bit easier. Neatness wise, I could probably make that a lot neater, but that is it. And hopefully that answers any questions you may have. Otherwise, you can leave some in the comments, and then we go from there. Brian from Garage Mahal, thanks for watching, and be safe out there.